Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's 5:30 a.m. here in New York. The city is still glowing the way it always does. But if you were standing here right now, you would feel it instantly. Today doesn't feel like a normal morning. The air is strange, the streets are quieter, and everything seems to be waiting, as if something big is about to happen. Let's take a closer look at what's really going on inside New York. New York has always taken pride in being a city of stability, wealthy, powerful, and accustomed to seasoned political figures. But that morning, everything changed in just one night. Election results flashed across screens in cafes, train stations, office buildings, and the entire city seemed to freeze. Zohran Mamdani, 34 years old, a name most New Yorkers couldn't even pronounce correctly. Yet overnight, he became the mayor of the most powerful city in America. No dramatic photo finish, no narrow margins, just a clean, cold, decisive upset. Strong enough to force every political analyst to rethink their predictions, New York had a new leader, and no one truly understood what had just happened. In the first few hours after his victory, Mamdani became the symbol of two completely opposite emotions. Half the city called it a fresh start. The other half said it bluntly, New York has just entered its most dangerous experiment in decades. At real estate offices in Florida and Texas, phones were ringing non-stop. Agents described it as an investment wave we've never seen before, all starting the moment Mamdani was declared the winner. Florida, long a magnet for the wealthy because of its low taxes, suddenly became the refuge for people fleeing New York. Not for the weather, not for the beaches, but because they no longer knew what New York would look like tomorrow. Out on the streets, the mood was chaotic, excitement mixed with tension. Young people talked about hope. Older residents talked about risk. Businesses were restless. The whole city felt like it was holding its breath, waiting to see what this young mayor would do next. Because everyone knew one bad decision, just one, could shake New York to its core. Only a day after the election, New York witnessed something unprecedented. Crowds of people dragging suitcases out of the city. Not because of a hurricane, not because of war, but because of fear of their own political future. Small moving companies in Brooklyn and Queens said their booking volume doubled overnight. Families who had lived in New York for decades suddenly locked their doors, handed their keys back to landlords, and drove straight south. And the strangest part, while the media continued arguing about the young new mayor, Florida's real estate market became the fastest, clearest reflection of New Yorkers' anxiety. A broker in West Palm Beach said that within just 48 hours, his office received more calls from New York than in the entire previous month. Not the usual price inquiries, but the kind of questions that only appear when people truly feel threatened. Is there a place available right now? We need to move soon.
And yeah, I was wrong because it literally turned on like a light bulb, literally blew off like a firecracker, and the post-socialist New York City political market is here on our shores in Palm Beach.
At the same time, social media was flooded with short clips showing Wall Street millionaires standing in line at bus stops heading to the airport. No one said anything out loud, but everyone understood why. They didn't want to wait until the new policies were implemented to decide whether to leave. For the wealthy, leaving a city before taxes rise or the business climate shifts isn't panic. It's survival instinct. And then, one by one, they left. No shouting, no chaos. Just doors closing, boxes being loaded into cars, and calculated footsteps leaving the city behind. New York had lost residents before, after the pandemic. But this time was different. This wasn't an exodus driven by a weak economy or rising living costs. This was a retreat caused by something far more dangerous. People were losing faith in the city, and in its future. The city had never seen a wave of political escape like this in modern history, and the fact that it happened in the very first week of a new administration forced the entire country to ask, is New York entering a new era of instability, or is this just an overreaction from people afraid of change? While the exodus hadn't even cooled down, New York was shaken again by the new mayor's first announcements. Not vague promises, not decade-long plans, but changes that hit directly at the daily lives of millions.
That same spirit will animate this transition and the city hall we built, because New Yorkers deserve a government that they can trust.
And it was these changes that sparked a level of public argument the city hadn't seen before. On his very first day in office, Mamdani declared that New York's buses would soon become for everyone, removing fare barriers entirely. It sounded compassionate, even noble, but New Yorkers knew better. This isn't a small town, this is a transit system used by millions of people every single day. Not everyone believed it was feasible. Clips circulating online showed drivers shaking their heads, passengers crowding the aisles, and the same question echoing across every neighborhood. If it's free, who pays for it?
appreciate what you do, my guy. All right, have a good one, my guy. Listen, you are the heart and soul, the backbone of New York. Stay safe.
I don't care if you come off afraid.
No one had an answer, and what was even more unsettling was this. No one dared to guess. Right after the transit announcement, Mamdani introduced his second policy, a rent freeze for stabilized apartments.
And I will also build 200,000 truly affordable homes across the 5 boroughs over the next 10 years to ensure that tenants, whether rent stabilized or market rate, can actually have more housing such that they are not being priced out of this city.
Those who qualified celebrated, but the rest of the city, the majority, was stunned.
You don't need a 3-bedroom apartment anymore, but where are you going to go, right?
In New York, every dollar of rent has a ripple effect. When one group gets a freeze, the others immediately understand someone will have to cover the difference. Landlords grew anxious. Tenants outside the protected group grew fearful. Even in modest apartment complexes, quiet notices began to appear. Prices will be adjusted soon. We're too big, but because no one had ever seen anyone dare to change things this quickly. Mamdani made no effort to hide his intention to shift the burden onto the wealthy and big corporations. His first press conferences were so direct that many people replayed them just to make sure they had heard correctly. He talked about redistribution. He talked about restoring fairness. But to the business community, those words sounded like nothing less than a warning siren. A finance company owner said on live television, "We understand the message, and we already have a plan." What exactly was that plan? No one answered. But the stream of U-Haul trucks leaving the city spoke loudly enough. From law firms to tiny corner stores, people began using the same phrase,
the new New Yorkers and the old New Yorkers. And Donald Trump is an old New Yorker.
One side believed these changes were necessary to finally address inequality. The other side argued the city was heading straight into a trial run of urban socialism. The two sides looked at each other like sworn enemies. Debates in bars, universities, and offices grew more hostile. In some places, security had to step in. New York had never been this divided, and it was only the beginning. While the city was still reeling from the bold economic policies, a bigger concern quietly emerged. One every New Yorker understands better than anyone else: public safety. New York is crowded, complex, and chaotic. Almost every problem in this city can be delayed, except safety. And what happened in just the first week of the new administration showed this could become the city's most dangerous vulnerability. In his first meeting, Mamdani openly discussed restructuring the police force, shifting away from heavy reliance on force and increasing the role of community-based social teams. To many, it was a humane vision.
In those same tweets, which I've apologized for to police officers directly.
But for people living near subway stations, night shift workers, and small shop owners, it felt more like a warning. The number of active officers is already the lowest it has been in nearly 3 decades. Meanwhile, assaults, robberies, and public attacks still appear on the news every single day. And no one could forget the viral social media clip, a woman being attacked right in Herald Square, in broad daylight. No one wants to imagine what happens when the police force becomes even thinner. Mamdani argued that many conflicts should be handled by social workers, not police officers.
Is something that will address the needs of New Yorkers in the present.
Young progressives supported the idea enthusiastically, but those who lived through earlier periods of weakened public safety understood something theory never mentions. New York is not like any other city. The subway is not a place for experiments. The troublemakers in Times Square aren't going to wait for a social worker to talk them down. And neighborhoods that are already complicated cannot rely on a handful of volunteers to maintain order.
Zohran Mamdani was...
Several NYPD officers said in an interview, "This isn't a movie. This is New York. Without police, things fall apart fast."
You get what you elect. Unfortunately, voter turnout was pretty lousy in New York, and that's not untypical.
Another key point in the new mayor's safety plan was granting more authority to the Civilian Oversight Board, a body with the power to evaluate police conduct. On paper, it looked like transparency. In reality, it felt like placing officers at a disadvantage before every decision they make. Many officers feared one thing: a single mistake while doing their job could cost them their career, their pension, their future. To them, this wasn't reform. It was a threat. Inside the NYPD, there were already murmurs that thousands of officers might avoid street duty or apply for transfers, simply to protect their careers. If that happened, the city's security framework would collapse instantly. The frightening part isn't in the statistics, it's in what people feel. You don't need data to know the subway feels more dangerous. You don't need a report to understand your neighborhood is less safe. And you certainly don't need an expert to recognize this truth. If both the police and the criminals feel empowered, the city is entering an extremely fragile phase. A resident said in a viral interview, "No one is afraid of breaking the law anymore, and the police are afraid to act. This city can't survive like that."
I've lived in New York City for even 5 years alone. You know, nothing is free.
New York has always been a city of order within chaos, but if that delicate balance disappears, everything can slide quickly, faster than the pace at which these new policies are being announced. And now, whether they support or oppose Mamdani, everyone feels the same thing. The scariest part may not have happened yet. As arguments erupt on every street corner, one question slowly rises above the noise. Where is New York heading? This is no longer just about politics. It's no longer just about a young mayor. It's about the direction of a city once considered the stabilizing center of the entire United States. Looking at the first waves of disruption, one thing becomes clear. New York is facing 3 possible scenarios, and none of them are gentle. This is what Mamdani's supporters believe in most. Free buses reduce transportation costs for millions. Stabilized rent prevents the poor from being financially crushed. Taxes on the wealthy are redistributed to the right places. A stronger community system narrows inequality. In this scenario, New York becomes a new template, a humane, modern, equitable city, almost like a progressive European model transplanted onto American soil. If it works, Mamdani will be remembered as the man who laid the foundation for a new future. But even the most optimistic people understand one thing: making everything run smoothly is nearly impossible in a city as complex as New York. This is the scenario business leaders, financiers, and real estate developers fear most, and the reason many of them left early. If taxes rise sharply, businesses flee, the wealthy relocate, and investors lose confidence, New York could return to the shadow that hovered over it in the 1970s. Rapid budget decline, crumbling infrastructure, rent spikes in unprotected neighborhoods, a volatile housing market, economic power shifting to low-tax states like Florida and Texas. In that case, New York, once considered the financial capital of the world, could devolve into an aging, sluggish version of itself, stripped of energy and appeal. Many people say it outright: New York almost went bankrupt once, don't think it can't happen a second time. This is the scenario that dense working-class neighborhoods feel most clearly every single day. If the police force weakens, whether due to resignations, political pressure, or fear of excessive oversight, really dangerous zone. The subway becomes uncontrollable. Free buses turn into chaotic, unmanageable spaces. Midtown Manhattan is no longer safe after dark. Low-income neighborhoods face a sharp rise in violence. The frightening part isn't an immediate explosion of crime. The frightening part is the slow erosion of safety, disappearing little by little, day after day, until one morning New York wakes up and realizes the city is no longer itself. In this scenario, it no longer matters whether the economic policies are good or bad, because in a city without safety, every reform gets dragged backward. New York is entering a phase where no one truly knows where the limits are. Mamdani could succeed spectacularly or fail disastrously. The city could become a model for new reforms or a warning to the entire nation. But one thing is certain: New York will never go back to what it used to be. The city has shifted direction, and no one knows where this new path will lead. The term of a young politician has just begun, and the future of America's largest city is now being placed on the test bench, in front of millions of people under the eyes of the entire world. If today's story made you think, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. New York is just one small piece of a much bigger picture that's changing every single day, and there are many more gripping, unexpected, and almost unimaginable stories waiting ahead. Don't miss them. We'll meet again in the next video. Hotter, sharper, and even more revealing. See you there.